Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Everybody have a chance to read the minutes of the last meeting.
I'll approve it.
Okay, it's been moved by Amanda.
Second.
Second by Cal. All in favor? Minutes are approved. Consent agenda. We need permission to pay the U.S. 36 Association membership for $100 and the Northwest Kansas Planning and Development Commission dues of $3,081.
And I just want to say there's those links out there in case you're interested. Just go to the information that they send to me. Just talks about what they do, where the money goes, that kind of thing. So it's all out there for you to read.
Is that through the state?
Which one?
The Northwest Kansas?
That is the people that do our CDBG grants.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so moved by Larry.
Second.
Second by Dara. All in favor? Approved. Okay, Cody's not here. New business. The CDBG grant agreement.
Scott, it's there for you to sign. There's 2 places for you to sign. Somewhere in your pile it's got green stickies on it. And it's their standard agreement, just like the last time for the CDBG grant. This is with the Department of Commerce with the state. We have to have that signed and in place in order to receive our grant funds.
So we need to have a motion to
Motion and vote.
approve the CDBG grant agreement.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Cale, second by Amanda. All in favor?
You need to vote.
Vote, yeah. David?
Yes.
Cale?
Yes.
Amanda?
Yes.
Dara? Larry?
Yes.
Okay, Pat. Okay. Trash waiver renewal.
For Marla Ross. They've had it for several years, 519 East 4th Street. They use it for personal storage.
Your motion to approve the trash waiver.
So, second.
Third.
Second.
Motion made by Dara, second by Amanda. All in favor? Approved. I don't know if I got that right, but... Okay, old business, property cleanup.
The property on East 4th and the property on South Denison have been served. They will be having their first appearance on the 20th of April for municipal court. There is one more property on Whittier, which the letter is being served on the tenant tomorrow. And the owner is going to be served a form letter, which we've decided is going to come from the city. I need to ask the council if they want... This is the second time in a 12-month period. The first time was in October. So this is the second time in a 12-month period this house has fallen in the same issue. We have passed the ordinance about 3 times in 12 months, and the second time will be the final notice. But the first notice wasn't when the ordinance had been passed. So I didn't know if the council wanted to treat this as the first incident in a 12-month period or the second incident in a 12-month period.
I think about got to go back to the first because we didn't have it in place.
Yeah, about got to start over.
That's what I was... That was the due process concern
Everybody
that I
agree
had.
with that? We just basically got to start over with that one because...
Is this in their hands to serve this currently, or it will be given to them?
It will be given to them tomorrow.
So, honestly, based on another complaint I had for the property for another issue, I almost wonder if we don't add that in. There's trash, right? It's not just the animal.
Right, but that would fall under the environmental hazard of the owner.
Sure.
The only thing that
This one is specific to that.
This one, right, and so...
So we can do it separately. Good enough.
Yeah.
I just want to make
Yeah,
sure.
so that will be part of the 2A809, or 2A09 violation. And then but the animal feces is part of the 2-105 violation.
Very good.
So with that, I've put out there on the link to that, and Scott, I think I gave you copies. These are the letters that are going to come from here. Jared, do you have them?
I do not.
And I'm just going to point out,
110 Whittier.
I'm just going to point out they're identical. The first one is the first letter that gets sent, the second one is the only difference.
Yeah, Mark caught me the other day.
Thank you.
And we're addressing the dog on the short leash living in its own feces as an animal cruelty violation rather than a property cleanup. That's the letter that's being served on the tenant tomorrow.
Okay.
And then the trash and other unsightly things are going to be addressed with the owner as per the statute, but we're addressing a potential animal cruelty violation.
Okay.
So those letters, the first one will be the first one that will be sent tomorrow. And then the second letter you're looking at there is identical to the first, except for it has the notice at the top that this is the second notice. And then, Lauren, you'll want to look at that last paragraph. The last paragraph basically just tells them this is their final notice, and the next one will be a citation. And then Lauren had me include the information about the potential fines.
I think it's important that people realize that if it gets to the point where they're issued a citation, the mandated fine by the ordinance is a minimum of $50 per day that the property is in violation of the ordinance. And it can be up to $100 for each day. And so if it falls, and the more it falls out of compliance, the more likely I am to ask for a higher fine because they should know better. The first sentence in that final paragraph is verbatim the ordinance that states it's your final notice and you're going to just be cited next time. And then the final sentence is the verbiage that I recommended Lila add to it.
Do those look okay to you guys?
Yeah.
So I'm assuming, I just want to make sure I have my process correct. JR, you'll take pictures and you will keep them, or will you provide them for my files?
Probably make that available, because if you do go forward, you want the very first step.
Right. So
at the office.
we have to have the pictures when it goes out, because if they are cited, I can then prove it has been in violation for 15 days. That right there, $50 a day, 15 days. Every day it's there afterwards, $50 a day. So I need what it looks like when it goes out, because then if they come to court and they say, well, I've cleaned it up, well, we're going to take pictures of what it looks like now and how much progress have you actually made.
So you don't need those pictures, though, until it goes further.
Right, but I do need...
They need to be available for the next
Right.
notice, so we'll keep those in the
And
office.
what
in the
I
event they get
what I did when I was sending them out was I sent them a copy of the picture. I sent them a letter and the pictures that were taken. And so there was no question of, well, what's wrong with, well, here are the
I can
pictures.
do that.
Yeah. And so that way we have a copy of that packet that's been served,
Okay.
and we say you were provided this.
Okay.
You knew better. You've been warned.
And based on this process of going out of this office, I'm assuming council wants to go by what they're requesting being sent, but also during the 2-week period between meetings, that if there is something that's so obviously out of line, to just go ahead and send out the notice. Is that right? Or do you want it to come from council? It's a 2-week cycle. It doesn't matter to me. I just want to know, because if I get a complaint, look at something, do you want me to come back to the council, or you want me, if it's just obvious, to go ahead with it?
I think it's obvious, but
Yeah.
get the ball
Okay.
rolling.
The only time, I wouldn't probably do that is because we attempt to go worst first to get the progress where it's the most or whatever, but I would think in a lot of these cases it's pretty obvious. Okay.
I will also say, so we'll send out the letter, and then the sheriff, we're having the sheriff write the citation. I don't know how we want to go forward with the process, if we want the sheriff to take the photos, which they did when they issued the citation in the next case, but I need that 15-day window. You're getting a letter, here are the photos, you didn't do anything, here are the photos that are triggering the actual court case. So
So you want to copy the first letter that goes out with photos?
I want a copy of the first letter that goes out with photos, and photos from, and we can talk to the sheriff's department and say, when you issue that citation, you need to take pictures and bring them back, or 15 days from the day the letter goes out, if you want to go take pictures and get them to Cody as part of the citation,
Okay.
we can do it that way. But I need I need pictures of when the notice goes out, and I need pictures when the citation goes out.
Just a clarification, are we expecting the sheriff to take the pictures?
Probably not. I would say that is a case where when we come close to the time frame of the deadlines, we need to know whether it's in compliance and or, further baseline pictures, whether they did anything at all. So I think that would come from the first picture paper.
We had the sheriff, for the East 4th property and the South Denison property, we did have the sheriff take the picture when they issued a citation. The reason for this was that Amanda had taken the pictures and given them to me and provided them to Cody, and they were supposed to issue the citation, and one of the deputies tried to issue it, did not get it, did not tell anyone he did not serve it, and left it in his pickup for 2 weeks. And so it wasn't until we thought it had been served, and it wasn't until about a week and a half later we realized it had never been served. And so when I said to Cody, he goes, well, we'll go serve it today. I said, well, I need pictures of the property showing that it's out of compliance. And so I did have the sheriff take photos at that time because Amanda had already done the job once, and because the sheriff failed to get it served within 48 hours, their office, the deputy did, then I said, I have to have this as evidence. And so they went and did it that time. But I think
But
that...
on a reasonable
I
time
think-
of service,
right.
we should be okay. Okay.
Right. I mean, I think that probably the procedure should be, you take the pictures, get them to Lila, she sends out the letter, 16 days after that, because they have 15 days. So on the 16th day, you take the pictures, get them to Cody, he issues the ticket.
Okay. That makes sense to me.
Sounds good. Okay, any further discussion there?
On property cleanup, yes. I was followed up on the east, the 2nd or 3rd Street, I can't remember now, 2nd Street. Different mess. I mean, they're moving stuff. I think they are actually cleaning the old house out, but all the bag trash is gone, but there's a tremendous amount of trash there. That would be one that would be on the radar. There's appliances and other things out there, but all the bag stuff is gone. So I guess it's kind of on the edge as long as they're doing something. The second one is, I think this one maybe came to my attention through the council as well, but is across the street to the east at the hospital. That is blatantly out of place for that neighborhood, and it would be servable even if not in that neighborhood. There's vehicles, bag trash. That one, that's why I was just asking about the intent. If it's obvious, that one's obvious. I think that one has just been slowly getting more and more at that location, so I would intend on sending that one out right away.
Where is that?
It's on the east side of the hospital, right between, what's that?
On the alley?
No, it's the, yeah, it is
Oh, no.
too. It is the alley house, but it's on, the stuff is on in the driveway, yeah. So, and that's all I have.
Okay, anybody else have anything on property cleanup? Okay, we'll go to projects pending.
We have Jordan here, Flaggart, to talk about his billboard proposal. And Scott, I will apologize. Amanda, you might want to pull it up and share with Scott. I didn't get him printed out for you, but he sent us some.
Yes. Okay.
We'll just let you have the floor, Jordan, and explain what you're doing. And
Very good. Let me. Okay, so I guess first things first, this would be the sign west of town and east, like between here and Bird.
yeah, they're both out about 7
Okay.
miles.
Okay, so that would be the reasoning it actually had like the 6 miles ahead thing.
Mhm.
Okay. For one thing, I've actually never even noticed that those signs were there. And I feel like it's just because they were too quaint, not very colorful, not attention-grabbing like at all to me. So if you look kind of through here, page 1 has basically what would be like a more modern type layout. And then that would be just more colorful. I feel like there's a picture there of the Main Street signage you guys installed. I feel like it fits better with that kind of image. And then if you go to page 2, that's like a sketch of kind of how I envisioned this to appear. Possibly more smooth, say, like the upper left on page 1 or the upper right. So that was an option. And then page 3, more like historical takes on it. So I don't know which way to go, because I feel like St. Francis tries to embrace history, but they're trying to make moves to be more forward-thinking. And that's kind of the situation. I feel like we should lean into one or the other. So, I don't know. How do you guys feel about that?
I like page 2. Which one did you like? Oh, that one there?
If we did something like that, would it be the actual cityscape or?
So I was thinking basically a stylized version, like
Yeah.
if you look there, I mean, it has like the elevators, the water tower. We could
Yeah.
pick a few other distinct things and kind of nestle them in there.
Yeah,
It definitely draws your eye.
I like that.
Do we need more information? Or are we just trying to catch people's eyes and say, hey, you're almost there?
Have these billboards ever been like informative billboards?
Just basic information.
No.
Yeah, so the
I
current
have a
one,
few seconds to look at it, so.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
how much can you read
Yeah.
going 65
Right,
miles an
totally.
hour?
Yeah.
Look, 4 paragraphs.
That catches my eye quick.
Yeah.
So the current one, yeah, it says a peaceful city with a thriving downtown, and then it has like 4 icons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I actually couldn't even catch what they were when I was driving by. So, in my opinion, yeah, simple is better. And then, yeah, so page 4 would be, and I may just even show you, because that sketch doesn't necessarily illustrate it.
This one reminds me of the motorcycle museum. I don't know why.
What's that?
This one kind of reminds me of the motorcycle museum.
The bottom one?
I don't know why. It just has that feel to it.
One thing about colors, they'll fade out faster.
Yeah, and those billboards currently are super faded.
Oh,
Okay, so
yeah.
here is effectively what I would genuinely want it to look like. Now, we couldn't do something that detailed within a month, but that is like a closer idea to what the page 4 mock-up would be like, which has like a very classy, like dignified look, I think. So that speaks more to like the history. The other one would be more forward-thinking, I guess.
Jordan,
That one.
I'm sorry. On this, the part Scott was just bringing up, so how long would it take with these kind of colors before they would be faded out?
I really couldn't tell you. How long have the current billboards been there? Do we know?
5 years?
Huh?
5 years?
I think it's over 5. It's probably 7 years or whatever.
Okay.
But they're pretty faded out, and see our motorcycle signs out there have been up 6 years and they don't show anything.
Yeah. Really?
Sure depends
That's
on the quality of
color.
what we use.
I like this with white, and we can put sunflowers in there, and then with gold or green lettering and stuff, that would pop. I don't know.
On the page 4 one?
Yeah, page 4 one, if a guy went with kind of a white background and then put those sunflowers in there with the color,
All right.
and then the lettering with color,
Yeah, so if you did something like that. You like that more? See, originally I had one that was green and yellow, but I was like, is that leaning too much into the high school at that point rather than the city?
Would that be
Can
too
you
bright,
go-
you think?
what's a white background look like with the sunflowers and stuff? Yeah, that kind of,
Hard to read.
Yeah, I
I
would
like
definitely
the
go with
color.
a deep color, for sure. Otherwise, I don't think we'd
Yeah,
notice it too much.
Well, yeah.
Just see what you got.
that didn't do what I thought it would
What
do.
would look like with that color?
But what if the sunflowers were the gold and stuff in there to give it.
Yeah.
But then that would maybe take
It
away
takes
from the
from
lettering.
Yeah, I mean, we could figure that out too on like the next revision if you want.
But you could make the lettering darker if you have the
Do the
gold
shadow
of the
of black.
sunflower, you know.
So anyway, I was basically just wanting to get some opinions on which general direction you guys felt strongly about. Do you want kind of a more modern take, a more historical take?
Kept giving us a drum roll for the decision.
That's what appeals to my eye more.
Yeah, I like
Which
the-
one?
I like the colorful, the
This one.
sunset.
But I'm afraid, you got me afraid that the color would fade so
That's
fast.
what-
I think that it might, so.
Yeah.
So this is the design, though, isn't that a question for who you have to do
It'd be like the
the
quality
actual
of
thing?
the-
Because if you talked, you talked about talking to like, well, you're talking about the museum signs
Yeah.
being on that stuff that's pretty resilient. I'm sure if you,
The hot brush
there's
is
different grades of
Yeah.
this stuff,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
guess. that have
Yeah, the hot
actually
brush
produced
did those
it.
signs.
Yeah, and something like this, so that would be a vinyl sign. Something like this you would not be able to do with vinyl.
And that definitely would catch your eye. It's just, I would hate to, 24 months down the road, it's faded.
So here's the other side of that. You can use the same design 3 to 5 years. Before we had them redone, I think we put different copies of that same one up at least twice since
Oh,
I've
really?
been here. Yeah, so you reprint them. These, I
Yeah,
think,
but you now have to
these are the
redesign
first- these
it.
are the original ones. I don't think we've ordered, but yeah, we used to get replacement ones of the ones before.
Yeah, I think did we replace both of them once before? Since,
I think twice, actually.
so they don't really last that
Have on them?
long.
Yeah.
That was that canvas
Same.
out of Kobe that made those.
You said these couldn't be printed on?
They couldn't be done vinyl like the motorcycle sign that you were talking about. The ones that seem more resilient, unfortunately. I mean, you could do something with vinyl, but that would be it would probably be more expensive, honestly, than just getting it printed at that point, because it would be so
So I
big.
think it would be
Yeah.
more expensive. And the signs are bigger. The two city signs are way bigger than the two motorcycle signs. Even though the motorcycle signs are big, I think the city ones are bigger.
They're
Yeah.
10 by 20.
10 by
The city
20.
signs are-
Okay.
You could run an experiment. You could do one of each on each end and see which one may last longer and which one people respond to the most.
You could, I wouldn't be able to get both of them done in a month, though,
Okay.
Yeah.
for sure. I'm assuming this needs to be done like before alumni, is that what the?
Probably by next weekend. I don't know if we're really
Doesn't
on
have to
time.
be, it's just doing
I don't
it.
think we're on
Yeah.
any time frame.
Yeah.
Since you mentioned alumni, that's probably a good idea. That'd be
Yeah.
the third week in June. But if they're not, they're not. But we just knew that they were fading out pretty bad, and it was time to start looking into it, so.
Yeah. I kind of want to avoid using that diamond-shaped St. Francis thing. I think that just doesn't work quite well enough on the sign because it gives you less real estate for the text to kind of fill things out and be easy to read.
So can you put something together with the sunflowers, just so we can look at it?
Sure.
I like the sunflower background.
I'd like to see it in the color where you can really
Mhm.
tell it's sunflowers.
And like you say, some signs have too much on there, and you can't read them.
Yeah.
You can't read them fast enough, so if you got big, bold St. Francis, Shop, Dine, and Enjoy, I guess that pretty well says it, so.
Yeah, I do like the conciseness. The only other slogan that I'm aware of that I've been able to track down was, and I don't even know how old this one would be, but it said, spend a day or the rest of your life, I think. But I don't know if that was ever like a city slogan or if that was just kind of something somewhere I tracked down. Couldn't tell you.
Let's just say as good as it gets.
As good as it gets.
Good as it gets.
That's on the city website. I just pulled it.
As good as it gets.
As good as it gets.
We don't improve, we just.
We're going to say as good as it gets, and they're going to drive across that access road.
Yeah.
Maybe we should sign up on every single.
Almost.
Yeah.
Wasn't that on our signs for a while? Prior to the changes?
Was on
As
one.
good as it gets?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, as good as it gets was on the sign.
My daughter always said that was depressing.
I guess I agree with David. Love the way the color jumps at you on that one sign, but how quick would it fade?
That's not there.
Unless you could, is there a way to clear coat those signs? You know, Joe?
When you're doing talking about the more soft
And the day or to stay was also on the city website.
The what is?
The consider visiting St. Francis for a day or to stay is also on the city
Oh,
website.
okay.
So that's
Nice.
probably where you got that.
Okay.
This one doesn't even have a slogan on it, does it?
The appear, shop, dine, enjoy.
Okay. That's real simple. I mean,
Yeah.
I think simple better.
Yeah, sometimes when you try to put too much on there, they can't read it all.
I agree.
But with what we got on both sides of town where they're all faded out, that's not doing us any good right now, so we need to get something up.
And having, what you said, JR, makes sense. If we're not having to reproduce it, and we're just reprinting it, then it's much cheaper to do.
So it's probably going to be better to go with the canvas, go with canvas and have them print that off, and then it's just stretched over that big chunk of plywood out there and stuff, and then they can always print us off. Depends on how much they are. We might order 4 of them, and we'd have 2 on hand, in case one of them ever got it. Yeah, because that first one out east of town got ripped up, didn't it? Pretty bad, so we replaced that. I remember that now. And then we replaced this one out here too, so yeah.
And generally speaking, these billboards probably have a way shorter shelf life than like what they do out here, where it just stays up for 6 years or whatever, you know. So they're probably, even like if you went to like a better company, it may not benefit you that much as far as like the sun bleaching and that kind of thing. Well, we sound torn to me. I'm not sure. Do we feel? Does anyone have any way they want to lean here?
Probably the sunflowers and
I'd like to
change
see
the colors
that.
a little bit.
Yeah, I'd like
Yeah.
to see a layout of that.
Okay.
See how the colors pop.
I like the colors of the first one, it just seems a little busy. And I know you said you were going to soften it down or whatever, but to me, it just looks a little busy, and I think the other one, we could maybe play with the colors to maybe
Yeah.
Okay.
get some
Sunflower in there,
longevity with
yeah.
it, you know, if it's not quite as,
Yeah.
still make it stand out, but yet.
Yeah.
get
Well, and the colors on the current one, like it was like paint splashes, I think, but they were all very like pastel colors, so they probably got bleached out like in a year or something.
Yeah, I like having the bolder colors, but also.
Okay. Well, that is where I will start then for the next mock-up. I can shoot you guys when I get it done.
Next week.
We'll see. We'll see.
We won't meet for another couple weeks.
Right.
I don't think we're on any time crunch.
No, we don't have to. I mean, you're the one that mentioned the alumni weekend, so now you're putting yourself pressure. But I'll bet you by the time you get it designed, we give it to Colby, they probably couldn't get it done quick enough to have it done by that weekend, so.
True.
But whatever, I mean, we're not on any time frame.
Okay. No, much appreciated. Any info is pretty helpful right now.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, thank you.
Thanks, George.
I'm sorry, could we pop back up to property cleanup for just a second?
Okay,
I was trying to get this open and I couldn't get it open fast enough when we were talking about it. Section of the St. Francis Code, section A-2A06 states public officer. The mayor, with the consent of council, shall designate a public officer to be charged with the administration and enforcement of this article. Meaning that if the mayor wanted to designate JR and the council wanted to approve that, JR wouldn't have to bring the properties to the council. He could just let Lila know there's an issue, and then we'll just inform the council at the next meeting what has been done. And now, I don't know if you want to do that, but the code does permit it, so that way, if there's a violation, JR could act immediately without...
I thought he already was.
because we,
Well, based on his statement that if it was obvious, did he want that, or did he want, and then bring the rest to council?
Right.
The code allows that he wouldn't have to check in with council
I
on
know.
any of them.
But I think he's already the code, whatever you said. Where is that at?
Here.
Yeah, I think that's already.
Enforcement. So, I guess, then does JR have the authority, whether it's blatantly obvious or not, to go ahead and do it? I mean, based on the question, I guess that's my...
A little bit of history I always have.
Okay.
I was wondering, while we're changing processes and doing some things differently, if they wanted to move forward with the council being involved with that serving, or as it has been in the past, where if it's blatant, you just do it. So that was just clarity on going forward.
Okay. I just wasn't
Yes,
sure.
I always have.
Okay, perfect. I was like,
because that's no different than the weed letters and everything
Sure.
else.
Right.
We waited
You've
on
always
some of that
taken-
stuff.
well, and
and
that's
give
why,
back more.
I guess I misunderstood the clarification. I just wanted to make sure. I was like,
Sure.
are we always going to wait? So, okay, perfect. Thank you.
Anything else on project spending?
Talked to Michael Baxter on the access road crossovers. And I think I sent that email out, whenever he sent that a while back, as far as so there's conflicting statutes as far as whether or not the state is required to maintain or whether they're not because of that Connecting Links agreement. He feels that we, have strongly in our suit that it's not a city-owned street, it's never been platted, the city's not maintained it. His suggestion going forward would be, what is the city willing to bring to the table? Like, when we address the state, if we have to go forward with going to the state, what are we willing to... We think you own it, how is the city going to offer up to...
Some assistance.
I might
That's like
suggest...
negotiating prior to doing anything. At our last
Hold on,
meeting, we
hold
talked
on.
about this.
JR, I'm concerned that this is, because it's going on public record, this may be litigation strategy, and you may want to do this in executive session.
That's exactly the point. But back up a little bit, because on attorney-client privilege, we had talked about having the individual come and tell us, interpret exactly based on the information given what the city's position is, and a conversation directly with the attorney. That was the last meeting. I think it was. Was you at the last meeting? You weren't. Right.
Yeah.
No.
Well, and he was supposed to get a more detailed letter, and we never got that.
I was going to say, I never saw one. Did he send
I
it?
never got one either. I just happened to call him on the phone since the last meeting and say, where are we at? And so maybe we can discuss it, I guess.
Even if it was by phone conversation or something, for that attorney, if he's going to represent the city in some case, I think that there should be a conversation, don't you, with the council and have a back and forth and input with the council.
We need to find where we stand.
Representation, yeah. Because I don't think we can state our position and then the attorney who hasn't met the council or the mayor or anybody go forward with anything.
He's out of the case, right? We just need to, we need to offer up to pay for him to come out here and talk to us.
Yes.
Pay mileage, pay whatever it takes to get him here, and then he's got to sit down in front of us.
I'd like to see it done before I'm 60,
So how do we,
That's not tomorrow, is
I'm
it?
only 40 now.
Okay.
Don't say that before I turn 70. Because that's real quick, like.
so how do we get in contact and get that accomplished?
I'll just contact them and say the council would like to visit with him in person, or at least by phone. I mean,
Yeah, at least by phone.
Or, yeah, we could do it on a phone call, but we need to do one or the other, have him come here or on a phone call.
And I have to
Set
advise
time.
that the entire conversation be an executive session.
Right.
But does the phone call lend itself to a lot of ambiguity? It's hard to read people on a phone call.
Yeah, well, I agree. But if you
does
want,
he come out here anyway? He comes out here twice a month.
well, that's,
Could we possibly see when he's coming out next and schedule a special meeting?
yeah.
It would have to be earlier in the day, because he comes out and does.
Let's just find out what our options are.
Okay, yep,
Yeah,
I would be up for that.
okay.
yeah, we need to get in
Yep.
here, talk to him. Okay.
Yep, I can do that. The other thing, Washington Street Beautification Committee met a couple weeks ago, we were supposed to meet last week, and had to postpone it. We know that the large holiday banners need to be replaced, correct?
Yes.
And then we were looking at applying for grant funding, which needs to be done at the end of the month. Got some bids to replace the holiday banners and get spring, summer. The price is kind of, depending on which materials we go with, the design, all that kind of stuff, which we haven't nailed down. The grant funding was up to $5,000. The highest bid that we had for the same kind of material that we have now, which those banners, longevity is supposed to last 3 to 5 years, and they've been up 12. So we've gotten, they were impressed when they looked back at our account and saw how much use we've gotten out of them. So if we went with the marine acrylic, which we have out there, to replace the holiday ones, the bigger ones, and then get the 9 big ones and 20 small ones of spring, summer is $6,200 roughly. And so I guess we're looking to see if the council would be in agreement if we applied for grant funding and got the $5,000, if the city would be willing to cover the difference on the banners. Not that this is set in stone, but we're hoping no more than 2,000 over the 5,000.
And if need be, we can, if it comes in different, we can always order part of them now. We were just trying to save for the shipping and the stuff now, doing it all in one, that we can maybe apply for a grant or something later on too, if we need to.
I think that'd be a good idea.
We kind of got
So,
stalled out last week.
does everybody agree on that, to let them apply for the $5,000, and then the city would cover what balance we need to go ahead and get that stuff done? And couldn't that come out of the, what do I want to say,
The guest tax.
the guest tax fund?
Yep.
I know it has nothing to do with the Washington State beautification, but where did we fall, I forgot, where did we fell on those trash receptacles we talked about last meeting?
We
ordered
ordered
them
them.
last week.
They're done.
Or 2 weeks ago.
So on this
And
grant,
that quote was the same, just minus the taxes. I was going to tell you that
Okay.
this evening, but, yeah. Price was the same.
So do we need a motion for that?
I'll be writing the grant. Is that,
If
I mean,
Robin
this-
was going to see if what her schedule was too.
but it's the city
It's just
applying
city,
for the
yeah.
grant, right?
So
Okay.
do you need to,
Well, it would have to come through, my account to actually apply for the grant. So whoever is helping to write this grant, I guess they need to get in touch with me. Yeah.
Okay.
Who was it?
Robin Ryan.
Oh, okay.
Okay, anything else?
We need a motion for that.
Yeah, do we need a motion on that? Do I hear a motion to?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, it's been moved by David,
Second.
second by Larry, all in favor.
And we're approving what? I'm
That'd be
sorry.
proving to go ahead and write the grant for $5,000, and then the city will, around $1,200 or whatever it is, will pick up the rest of it out of the guest bed and tax.
I have a question about this litigation thing. Do we have can we maybe get a plan B in place? Like, can't drag this out for 2 or 3 more years. Like, can we, I don't know, start doing 1, 2 of them a year?
Absolutely not.
And
Until
bill
you
them
get
for
this
it.
cleared
Yeah.
up.
I don't
That's
know.
why they have to come out.
But they're so
You're already
dangerous,
saying
you
we'll
know?
do something
I
before
know.
we, and I understand what you're saying, because the urgency's bad, but we're actually in the process of repairing them, but that's no different than
I
trying to
know.
negotiate what we'll do. That's off limits.
I know.
You're not-
Yes, there
you're
is
not-
that.
You're not alone.
No,
I
you're
know,
not.
it's like,
I will say we will probably be a little more forward about keeping up with them, because they're obviously, prior, when we first made a deal of it, we went and patched them, they took it out, and they patched them with their own stuff. Now it's just they won't touch it.
Right.
So,
That's the number one thing I'm faced with since
Oh,
I've been
yeah.
on the city council.
I hear it a lot.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
By far.
What about the old pool? What are we gonna do with that?
last I knew, Dave had talked to you about doing the volleyball thing there, and I never heard any more about it.
We never come up with anything concrete. David said that at that time, the county guys might be able to come in when they didn't have anything to do and take out the bathhouse and take out that north side and possibly move that sand volleyball court over there, but with Dave retiring and everything, it basically kind of got put on the back burner.
I think it's the city's own personal eyesore that should get removed.
I do too.
We've
We've been
talked about
sitting
this
on it
for
for
years, and it's abandoned age.
We could take the fence down. I mean, rec commission could use the fence out the ball field as an option. I'm just throwing that out.
Well, if there's something salvage there, we need to, do what we can, but then maybe see what the county would do to help us out with,
I think there would be some grant funding available if you could come up with a formalized project as far as what you wanted to accomplish down there, if you really wanted to turn it into a little park or something.
But the only thing we've ever come up with logical is to remove and then do
Yeah.
something. Right?
Oh, you're going to have to.
I think that's become a theme over the years of talking about it is,
we got the dirt sitting there to fill in with the big dirt pile, which is kind of an eyesore because then the weeds grow up on top of it too during the summer. But you can't, it's hard to take care of the weeds that grow up on that dirt pile.
If you're not going to allow anything to build there, you can just fill it in. Is that true or not?
I don't think we want to do that. We require any demolition in town to remove basement walls and floor in its entirety. I don't think that would probably be right. I know that's more expensive, but that seems a little bit backwards to leave anything there.
I think first, see if the county can help us out with that project. We still got a hole out there, don't we?
Yeah.
To take stuff to, so.
Yeah, which needs to get addressed in the next few years. I mean, it's an open permit, but
So you might check and see what the county would do. Of course, this is going to become their busy time, so it'll be a winter project maybe coming up this winter, but at least we know what we're going to do.
I'll talk to Steve about it.
Is Dave in and out at all anymore?
No. That's my understanding is that.
It's not for him,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
He's not on the paper anymore.
Okay, anything else? Okay, well, let's move on to the street projects.
So I talked to Casey. They should be back the first part of April to get started on Benton. Of course, we want to get that one closed out. Again, that's all the work they're going to be able to do for us this year. And then as far as the next phase, they still have not released any funds unless you was notified today for the next phase. And of course, that's where we get into design and having Miller get started on the next phase, so.
On that next phase, were we doing Benton Street? No, no? I didn't think so.
No, it's College, Quincy. I sent that map out to you. I should have sent that out to everybody. I apologize. That was one of those where I lined out all the ones we wanted to do, and it was on there, and we backed off just because it's not a truck route. However, I think that's one where in 2023 we would want to add that on as a non-funded project, where the city paid directly for it, which is what we was trying to do this year. But I think in 2023 we put it on the list, but it's not part of the CDBG thing. And if we have the funds at that time to take care of ones like that, because that's a heavy access road.
Benton, I mean, it's not terribly, except for that first block off.
Exactly.
Off the highway, it's really bad. Then as you go down the slope, it's not so bad.
Right.
But of course, you get to the new stuff, so, okay. Anything else on street projects?
Don't think so.
Okay, visitor, Elmer, you here for anything or just came to listen?
Well, part of this listening, part of that concern that been for a long time on, they put in the paper, we sitting up by Amanda's here, in the paper they do announce about the city council meeting, commissioner meeting, Bird City School Board meeting. I've been concerned maybe we ought to put a lot more stuff in the community calendar. I mean, how we get it in there, I don't know. Although there's all kinds of meetings with school board, I know that I pick up there at 7 o'clock in the morning sometime, but it's not public information. I don't know how we do that. The other thing is, how do we get more of this information? I know you can go online and get it, but a lot of people in Cheyenne County are like me. They're not very handy getting online. How can we get this? I know neighboring newspapers, Wallace County, I've got copies of them. They put in the minutes of the meetings, the city council meetings, the commissioner meetings, and the school board meetings are published in the paper so the public can see what's going on. And so I guess I'm concerned about more transparency. How we do this, I don't know. I don't know what in the paper, what kind of, if people send you information, do you always publish it, or what's the policy here about getting stuff in the newspaper so the public knows what's happening?
Like, as far as the community calendar, I mean, that's in every week, like they meet. I usually change the date, but maybe it's wrong occasionally. But when their next meeting is and what time it is, that kind of stuff for commissioners, city council, it's always in there.
Do you have to send it to you, or do you reach out?
No, I mean, if anyone sends anything to me, of course I print it as long as I can.
No, we have a lot of line stuff in there, it's in every time, line stuff, but a lot of cemetery board, once in a while I'll see a cemetery board meeting, and a lot of meetings are happening, fair board, when do they meet? They're all, a lot of these are entities that are taking tax money from the public, and maybe I'm wrong, but they seem like they ought to be on there, so if the public wants to go to those, maybe that if you want to go, you better find out on your own. I don't know how much transparency we want to get, how much do we as individuals, if we get interested, should we dig out and find on our own? I don't know. That's a concern I have. How do we get information, more information to the public about what's happening in our city, county, school, things this way. So.
Okay.
Did we talk about that before, about minutes in paper, or did that used to happen?
I don't think
It's
so.
never happened.
Amanda just listens to the meetings
like
and
minutes, but we certainly can. I mean, it's not.
I can send the minutes after they're approved. They'll be 2 weeks old, and that's what we talked about
That's
before.
why I'm
Sometimes,
not
yeah.
doing it, because it
And
was
there's so
so...
many changes in those weeks, sometimes it makes it, because by the time it's approved, it's already the next meeting. So.
That's right.
It's hard.
So maybe that's not a good idea.
Well, the trouble is with people, they don't realize all the stuff that we go through. So we're discussing this right now. 2 weeks later, we approve it. Well, they're missing out on when we was discussing it, when we approved it, and all they hear is the very last thing. So to me, they know our meetings when they are. If they want to be involved, they come sit as audience. There's too many things that they say, well, this is what happened. No, that's not what happened. Because they didn't sit through, it might even be 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the road that we discussed something before we made a decision on it. So unless they are involved in it, and the only way to be involved is to be there. I don't know. It's a tough deal.
I would agree.
It's a tough deal. Communication is the number one fault of everything. Everybody and everything. You just can't get it all out there. So I don't know what the best solution to it is. Very few people read the papers anymore. Very few.
I've had people tell me, say that only 30% of the households, and quite young, 30% of the households in China County get the paper, and only 30% of us that get it read it. That's the other problem we have. We read the headlines, and I look at the community count, that's the first place I look to see what's happening in the community, but it's the city council and about the meeting and the commissioners, and I don't know, maybe we don't, I think part of the problem, we don't care. Part of us are lazy. We just don't care enough to be involved.
Yeah.
So much online anymore.
And I agree with you.
Well, the young stuff's online, but we got a Lions Club. About a third of our club don't even have computers. They don't. So we've got to communicate some other way. So I'm saying, how do we communicate? I've got a document that says if you want to get people to know something, you've got to contact them seven different venues you've got to use for people to get the information you want to get out to them. So how do we make all that work?
I agree with you, Alma. I mean, I'm not a fan of all this stuff. I'm not. I'd rather have the paper in front of me.
A lot of us older people are that way, and so how do we need a group somewhere? And I know that, I think the internet, Helen Dodge was telling one day, we got all kinds of Facebook stuff going on out there, but each one's got their little group of people. We're not getting a broad segment. We're getting a few little patches here and patches there. We're not getting it to the broad public. And I don't know how we do that.
When it comes to disseminating information, there's no perfect way.
The
The running joke at my church is we have a Facebook page, we have a website, we put out a weekly newsletter, we have a bulletin on Sunday mornings, we make an announcement for the pulpit, and I still have half my people say, what are we doing?
I guess people could call the city office and request a copy of the minutes. You can come pick it up.
When they're approved.
You
The
can
minutes,
you can print them out.
of course.
If someone wants them.
Absolutely.
Well, the agendas are available. If people are wondering what's going to be discussed, the agendas are available the Friday before. And, I mean, as far as the city goes, the city council meetings haven't, absent holidays, don't change. And so, I mean, I agree with the fact that, it needs to be accessible to the public, but I also think that the public has some duty, if they want to be informed, to come into the meeting so that they're not getting 2, 3, 4 week-old information. In some cases, when we have to table something, 3 or 4 month-old information. I think there has to be some...
True 2 weeks ago, but we changed now, 2 weeks later, so it's not even accurate information anymore.
And the recordings are out there too.
The next day. Yes.
And an example of that is, we've been talking about the access roads for 2 years now, and we keep working on it, and we keep working on it. People think we're doing absolutely nothing, but we are doing something, but we just haven't got there yet. And it upsets everybody, us. It upsets us more here than the people that are complaining to us, because we keep hearing all the complaints. And our hands are kind of tied at the moment. So we get a little further down the road here, and hopefully maybe getting this guy here will help us out. Well, I don't know, we didn't answer your question.
No, I know. I think somebody have to keep wrestling with it.
Yeah, I know.
We'll probably never get a good answer.
Yeah.
But I keep struggling with it. Usually when we come in here, we got an axe to grind, and we can solve the problem partially before it gets to critical stages where we go to. Thank you.
Yep, okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you. As soon as you come in and say something, a lot of people won't say anything. Thanks. Okay, school report. Larry?
We're having a full board meeting tomorrow night and interviewing the lifeguards and manager. So I don't have any other real information. The one thing that was brought up that I think the council needs to discuss is we had a fairly high expenditures last year in training because we had a lot of kids. And one of the things that was asked was whether or not we want to ask the lifeguard applicants to pay for their own training up front.
Thanks, George.
Thanks, George.
Thank you.
And then have the city reimburse, correct me if I'm wrong,
That's part of it.
reimburse once they pass, I guess.
The bigger part of it, rather than the cost of the training, the bigger part is paying them as employees before they're certified, because that's been the practice, is to, we've hired them, and then we pay them hourly to attend the training, and we pay their travel expenses over to Colby now, which used to be here, so it wasn't as bad. And they figured out that if they drive themselves, they get the mileage, and so they didn't carpool. Then they've got their meals that's there. And I put this out on the clerk link last year, and that's not the norm. The norm is most places the hiring is contingent upon being certified, and then they become an employee.
And along with what Lila's saying, in the past, it's always been, you get lifeguards, you get the pool open, and then a lot of times your training comes in that first week after the pool's open. But we've been limited on what we can do the last couple of years when we've had to bring somebody. We've tried to bring somebody out. We've ended up having to go to Colby. You had mentioned something about somebody that might be willing to come down from Denver at one point.
And train a trainer.
Yeah.
And I sent you an
Which is
email
one
on
of the
that.
things I think we want to look at, is trying to get somebody that could tackle this for 2 or 3 years. I honestly couldn't tell you that yet until we get through all the evidence. We've got, I'd say there's at least, I think you can guess, 5 or 6 that are probably coming back. I know there's 3 or 4 new applicants. I didn't bring that with me tonight. I'll know for sure tomorrow night, then, but right now, kind of what we're sitting on. I might just send an email out once we get it done, and so everybody has the information. We'll discuss it at the next meeting.
I don't think they should be paid to get the training. That's the whole thing. If you're paying somebody, if you're hiring them contingent on being certified, that's part of the contingency for the job. It just doesn't make sense to do it the way he's been doing it.
And I can't do without looking at each of the applicants as to who's going to have to recertify or who's going to have to get new certification.
What's the cost of getting certified?
$180.
$180.
And that's really bad. The certification cost isn't my primary concern. We've never had an issue with anybody getting certified and then not coming and doing a good job.
Yeah.
It's more all the other things that we've been paying for. It was over $3,000 last year. So
You could I guess just as a proposed, you could say you're hired contingent upon you passing it, and then if you pass it, we will reimburse you for the cost to get certified.
right.
But the travel,
But that's what's the drive. Yeah.
Travel and meals should be on them, but they have to move the certification.
Does it just take one day over there? How many trips do they have to make?
1 or 2, depending on.
And I guarantee you, if they knew that, they would carpool, especially now. If there's 4 or 5 of them, they'd say, okay, let's all take one vehicle, and
It depends on his training schedule, and we've talked to him about trying to come out here too, but his schedule's pretty tight. That's one of the things I'm hoping I can lock down tomorrow night, is when we can actually get training done. Hopefully we'll know that I'd like to know within a week, so we don't get too far out of line and not have that opportunity, I guess.
have it in my sent, I'll look.
So is there an agreement that we will reimburse them after they have got their
Reimburse for
their
training fee.
training fee?
fee.
If they had to get 7 of them at $180,
Yeah.
$1,200.
A lot of that's absolutely right. We didn't get hit so hard as far as resurfacing. It's all the time, the miles, and all that. And I think it tends to get taken advantage of.
And we've had instances in the past where we've hired them, they've become an employee, they've gone and attempted to get certified and then failed, and then they had to be let go. And so that's a lot of expense in my time to process a new employee and then unprocess a new employee. So it just doesn't make sense to continue to do it that way, in my opinion.
In the past, I don't know how far back you guys remember this, but we used to have a lifeguard that would train our lifeguards here, a certified lifeguard that was trained to do all lifeguard training. And we were fortunate to have that for multiple years. But then it got to the point where they were moving away. We didn't have anybody sticking around long enough that would be interested in doing that. We actually had a gal that come back for 2 or 3 years until she moved completely away to do it for us. And that's been, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago at least, I'm thinking. By all means, if anybody has any good ideas, let us know. I'll know more after the morning on it.
So we are going to move forward with not hiring them until after they're certified
Yes.
and then reimbursing them for, I think so.
It's been moved by Amanda, second by Cale, all in favor. Approved. Okay, do we hear a motion to accept and file the pool report? Moved by David, second by Cale, all in favor. Approved. Building permits?
I just have one for Eric and Leslie Cook on a additional on a kitchen. I've not had a chance to look at it, so it will be upon my approval.
I shouldn't even do it.
I'm sure he has had it. He didn't list on
Do you hear a motion to approve the building permit on approval after JR season?
So moved.
Moved by Larry, second by Amanda, all in favor? Approved. Superintendent report?
So library locks, I went ahead and called Rod Locksmith, and those are scheduled to be put in. Also, the trash can, which you mentioned before, along with the 2 replacement tops were ordered. Crack filling, McCormick is actually in town. They're working on the county's portion of that. That's the additional street work we talked about doing, getting some crack filling done. So that should be this week, probably tomorrow. I plan on attending the next commissioner meeting. I did not make it to the last one to discuss the recycling situation, where we plan on taking it down to cardboard, chipboard, and aluminum, and just stop taking that stuff. However, I was tempted to go ahead and put the signs up because I know that's where they stand. If they're not going to pay for us to haul it, which it made no sense to do anyway, but I'll try to get that official at the next commissioner meeting. And the last item I have up is something that's, we've had several discussions about this around the clerk's office and then along with some employees. I'm not really looking for any decision-making at this point or anything, but there's a benefit that the city provides to the employees that is used in different ways by different people, sick leave. We allow for personal time off for 3 days a year in a calendar year if you're above a certain balance. However, if you look at this thing, we have in employees, and If we talk about an individual, we would have to do that in executive session, but I just want to tell you in generality how it's used. About half the people use them, in my opinion, as time off. It's pretty hard to regulate a sick day, whether it be a headache, this, that, or whatever. So about half the people we have used their sick leave as they go. There's an obvious problem with using it in that way if you're not really needing it, and the fact when you really get sick, and this falls into another conversation, if you get sick and nobody's going to transfer you time, how long are you still a full-time employee if you didn't keep enough sick time? The reverse side of this conversation would be the people who never use a sick day. The city provides that there's no value to those days. Now, a person that uses that, as it comes to them, is getting the full 100% pay for each day they take off for that benefit. The person who retires or leaves the city in good standing gets $1 per hour for those hours currently. There's something wrong with the way this thing is set up. Lila's checked with other cities. There's ones that pay 25, 30%, 50%, up to 100% of what that is to the individual, be it retiring or ending in good standing. Of course, fired it's not. And again, I'm not looking to make a decision, but I wanted to start the conversation of how do you take your employees who never miss a day and reward them in a manner that is so far off from those who use them as they go. And I don't mean to say that these people that use their days, they don't have a headache, an eye appointment. I mean, you can use them for a relative being sick within your household. It's very loose on how you can use them. But you still end up with half the employees with these way overweighted amounts, and in some cases transferring them to the ones that don't have it. There are situations, of course, as you get older, you need more. And there's circumstances where it's not people that are actually abusing it, so to speak, that do need that, the additional time. But then again, it goes back to the same thing. You can only do so much, and all of a sudden, what is a full-time employee? Currently, it's 40 hours per week without clarification of special circumstances. So there's two things here that I think need to be considered, and at least considered, if not changed, and that would be the status of a full-time employee that has no leeway for the 40 hours a week on a regular basis. I just allowed some time off for a new employee here a while back, unpaid, because he hadn't earned any time off yet for vacation. Well, if you read it to the letter, he's not full-time. That's really too stringent, I guess, to say that, after 1 week of not getting 40 hours, you're no longer a full-time employee getting benefits. So that's the other issue, that they're tied together because of that, because of the way the sick time is. So I think what I'd like to do, and we just kind of started this conversation, actually it's been going on forever, but we just had Lila checked out on the clerk to find out what these other communities do. There's not many that do it the way we do. I think it's fair to say it's a weird way to act. It's a weird way to deal with banking time that is an earned benefit that's not used. So I think it's definitely worthy of a review. And maybe, I don't know if you have that wording on that 40-hour thing. That's the other thing. There needs to be some clarity in there. I mean, there is such a thing as a person needing time off beyond their benefit. There's also instances where they use them as PTO, and not accumulating sick leave. Our system isn't geared towards the people who don't use it, I guess is the way to put it.
The part of it that worries me is the way that it's worded in our policy, that a full-time employee is one engaged to work a normal work week of at least 40 hours on a regular and continuing basis. So the question comes in, when are they no longer considered a full-time employee? If we have somebody who has run out of their sick time, they have no vacation time, they have no leave time, they're out for whatever reason, and so now they're having to take time off without pay. Now they're no longer working 40 hours a week. at what point, let's say they work 40 hours this week, next week they miss a couple of days, so now they're down to whatever that is. But the next week they're back to 40. So I'm looking for guidance on what would we consider, a percentage, like 80% of the time you're working 40 hours, 20% of the time, for whatever reason, you're not able to do it. If it's a legitimate reason, I think we need to look at that.
And I think there's a possibility you could go on a case-by-case basis, because we do know that we're chronic, meaning repeated, situations of care. You know what that is. I mean, we do. We're small enough, we know what that is. I almost think it should be on a case-by-case basis, because we, in fact, had an employee who's no longer with us who repeatedly didn't make the mark. That's kind of one of those things where you want to be able to utilize your code to remove benefits. You want an incentive for somebody to be there all that they can and work for the city. That's what you're there for. So I'd be a little bit concerned about changing it, maybe a little bit more on clarity of circumstances that are in front of us at that time. Would that make sense to you? Because I really don't think we want to get into saying, okay, they used all their sick leave, now they're missing a day every other week. Do you want them full-time or not? That's obvious that that's a situation, but in the one we're dealing with, it is unique. It's different than how we utilized the code in the previous one, who was just simply not putting the time in at the city.
But the other example of that is, like you just said, giving somebody time off that they don't have because they're a new employee. Well, that's perhaps another special situation then that would need approval.
And I've done that in the past. In fact, we fronted sick leave for an individual at one time here not too many years ago. I think it's a situation where it's a permitted thing, like by the supervisor. I allowed somebody to take 3 unpaid days off. Well, if you read that to the letter, 40 hours, is that for all 52 weeks of the year? No, it's not. That's not. I mean, you have to have some special provision, but you also can't set up how it's written to be abused on it either. You don't want to get to a situation where somebody uses all their sick leave to use like personal time off, and then all of a sudden they're only really having to work 30 hours a week to keep their pay. I don't think you can set that limit, because it's different for circumstances. There are real ones, and there are ones where a person puts themselves there.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I would think, I realize it's a long conversation about saying I don't want any decision, but I wanted to put it out there. I think we can provide some further information and maybe even some recommendations on how to deal with it based on the information she did get to you this evening. But just maybe some ideas based on how these other ones are dealing with it, and then some recommendations on dealing with that full-time thing, because it's coming up. It's not too far off.
If I may.
I don't want to see somebody who needs it bad and has done their dedication, done their job, done everything, to be in a situation where, well, not only you're out sick leave, but you're out of benefits.
If I may, from an interpretation standpoint, I would think that the word that to focus on this may be engaged. One who is engaged to work at normal, full-time employee is one who is engaged to work a normal work week of at least 40 hours on a regular and continuing basis. That doesn't state they have to work 40 hours every week. That just states they're engaged. That's what is expected of them. So to put that language down below, any employee who is engaged to work fewer than 40 hours a week is considered a part-time employee, and they shall be entitled to these benefits if they are engaged to work 30 or more hours a week. And then something, failure to do so, repeated failure to satisfy your engagement may be cause to review your employment status. Just so I think the word engaged, because it's it allows that discretion of what are we wanting of you, what have we agreed with you to do, of, okay, well, when you don't work, if you have this 1 week where you only work 2 days, then that doesn't take you out of full-time or part-time status.
Which is exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You need to be able to interpret it based on circumstances, however it fits best for the city,
Right, and I think in order to do that, it needs to be focused on that word engaged.
and not change, because I don't want clarity on it, I just want to be able to utilize the wording it is. And make recommendations, I guess, based on individual circumstances. What's come up, like I said, in one case, that was, okay, that we can not pay benefits because we're not getting enough work. And then, like I said, the flip side is the one we're talking about now. So, just want to talk about it. Well, we're almost there, but. So,
And then, while we're on the topic, are we done on this particular part of it?
so if there's any questions or any further comments about it at this point, like I said, I just wanted to start the conversation more than anything.
Did you find out what other cities are doing?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes. Please pass those around. Like he said, I just got it today, and I just printed it for him, and I just printed it before I walked in here. So please pass those around. This is a kind of a condensed summary. Other responses I got were people that do nothing, like us, as far as the payout of sick leave. These are the responses I got for you to see. I got an equal number from cities. I got 9 from cities that do nothing. And then these are the ones that I got. So it varies, and the restrictions vary. So, but the other thing that I wanted to talk about that's kind of along the same lines is what? Where did it just go? Oh, our shared sick leave policy. So, Mayor, did I give you a copy of these that we were talking about? Looks like that. If not, should I did. I'll get you one. But basically, our policy right now, I need clarification on this because we have a policy in place where we can give sick leave to other employees if they need it. And the way that we have it set up now is it's a process, forms to request, forms to donate. But the wording on our policy says any eligible employee may transfer up to 120 hours of sick leave to any eligible employee so long as the donating employee's accumulated sick leave does not drop below 96 hours. That's not clear to me if that's, let's say I had a ton of sick leave, or I wanted to give 120 hours to this person, and I want to give 120 hours to this person. Can I do that, or is that a total of 120 hours for me to give? And is it an annual thing, or is it a one-time thing? It's very vague. And so I'd just like you guys to look at that and think about it and think of what might make sense for what it is that we're really trying to do with the shared sick leave.
Is there a cap on
Yes, 970 hours, so it's pretty large.
That's unused time?
That's sick leave.
Unused sick leave.
Yes, that's the cap. Which I will also point out when you're thinking about the other things is that, and JR and I had talked about this, is that that could be a significant liability financially to the city, whatever you decided to do moving forward. If you, as an example, this would be the extreme, if you decided 100% payout on sick leave and somebody happened to be here for a long time, 20 years or whatever, that's 970 hours, and if they're a long-term employee, they're likely making more than $20 an hour. But if you assume $20 an hour at 970, that's almost $20,000. That's a significant amount of money that the city would have to budget for somehow.
The obvious argument, and we've talked about this before, is people have used it about 100% of the benefit already.
Yes.
And I'm not saying it needs to be 100%. That's not my point at all. My point is that the ones who used it have used 100% of its value.
Yes. And so as far far as the budgeting goes, I'll just put this out there because we just had this conversation, it could be done. You could work it into the budget every year based on unused sick time of current employees, and you could have a line item in your budget if that's, depending on how you decide to move forward with this. It can be a budgeted thing, and it would be.
So you're saying the people that are using it, are using it 100% value, but the people that are accumulating it are not receiving it.
It's $1 an hour at retirement is what it's paid out at. And it's just, you're kind of left scratching your head at that a little bit when you read it.
So I think this is out on the share. I hope so. Okay. If everybody could look at that last section also and just think about that and get any thoughts on that.
I felt like we got the clarity on the 40 hours. Do you?
Yes.
Is it understood that circumstances, especially special circumstances, it would be a come to the council, but on giving somebody 3 days off before they have accumulated time unpaid seems to me to be an obvious, yes, that's okay. But again, we just wanted to communicate these things out while we were conversating about them and looking for clarity.
And I needed clarity on that because he and I had different opinions on that because I was to the letter of you can't take any time off because...
And I did that long before she was here.
Yeah. But in my first year here, though, that was my understanding, and I didn't take any time off. But
no different than the interpretation of whether sick leave is for sick leave or whether it's for PTO. I mean, I'm not making a joke about that. You know, a benefit is used differently by one person than it is by another. Interpretation is the same thing.
But in this case, the department heads have to be on the same level as far as, otherwise it's inconsistent for our employees. So that...
Absolutely, yeah. You can't end up with an employee she's supervising treated differently than me.
Yes.
That, like you said, that was, hate to say it was the way it's always been done, but, somebody requested that on.
Well, it was the way it's always been done in your department, but not in mine. And so, as you may recall, we had this conversation in interviews about time off. And I was relaying my interpretation that it's never been done. You can't take time off. So we needed that clarity as well. So if the council was good with that.
But there's also discretion on the time off. As a supervisor, you have the ability to allow somebody time off under the circumstances that they provide to you, and that is specific to that.
Well, is it?
Which I'll never argue.
I know.
It's a different point of view. We actually talked about this, and it's not at all like it's argued right on wrong.
Well, unlike
No.
vacation, I'm trying to remember, I think sick time, back when our employees in Dallas, Texas was a use it or lose it when it comes to sick time. And I don't know if that is applicable state by state or if it's, I don't know how that's set up. Is that the way it is around here, or does it accumulate regardless?
So that's not a business, it's a business decision. So every entity, it's not governed by FLSA, and ours is you accumulate and we've got a cap.
But that's what JR is saying. People are using it or they're losing it.
And it's unfortunate because it's geared towards taking sick time when you're not sick.
Right.
The bottom line is you should save sick leave for being sick, period. It obviously is interpreted differently from one employee to the next. And the employee who interprets it this way gets a much better benefit than the guy who interprets it this way and maintains.
My only thing with what you just said scares the snot out of me, because I think if you allow them, let's say we take oxygen bottle, we take 1/3 of that. Well, instead of having 900 some hours that they can accumulate, I think we ought to cap that. I don't know.
And there's the motivation you use them.
I know. That's the
I'm not
motivation.
trying to talk
Because
about
we can get hit really hard if we're not careful.
Do they also get...
I think that's the reason I said I wanted to talk about this and not make a decision.
I just don't like the
It
answer.
is.
Yeah.
I don't think it's fair the way it is, but I don't think the answer to it's a slam dunk. So, okay.
Okay, we've got stuff to be thinking
We don't have first time
Time
call.
of sick time. So if they accrued minimum 20 hours, it's 24 weeks they could.
Okay, is that all that you had? Superintendent?
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, that's fine. Okay, do I hear a motion to accept and file the superintendent report? Moved by Cale, second by Amanda, all in favor? Approved. Attorney report.
The gun club lease was sent to everyone. This is a revision. The change that was made was that it was going to, following the initial 5-year term, this lease shall renew for successive 1-year terms unless terminated as hereinafter provided. I added that provision so that way we don't find ourselves with it having expired 10 years ago. And then I added in paragraph 5, it stated that they would have the insurance. However, it did not say that they were required to provide a copy of it to the city. And so the city would not know if it had lapsed. And so I have added in that they are to provide the lessor with a certificate of coverage annually or upon the renewal of such coverage, whichever occurs most frequently. So if it's a 6-month policy, they have to present it to us every 6 months. If it's every 2 years, then they still have to present it to us every year showing that it's in effect, just to minimize the city's prospective liability. Other than that, I didn't make any changes.
I have concerns with the legal description.
Did I give you that?
Christine knocked it out. I don't know what the initial lease was trying to cover, but I guess my concern is liability. Obviously, it doesn't even cover all of the space that they utilize. I don't know what the initial.
This is really strange, because this was to be, when I seen that, I knew right away what it was. That's supposed to be cleared up from the last time we did the lease, because it's completely not the use of the property correct. So close.
That legal description? Well, that's it. Do we have, like, what they actually leased? Do they lease all of that, or is there a reason why it was just that triangle?
Too many years. No, that was a mistake. The triangle's a mistake. To just simply put, I don't know what. It was timed to be.
Is there a reason why that whole little part is not leased by them?
No, that was the intent, because at one point they had a long-range thing in there, so.
So like all of that from like Brock's, east of the old, George property over to the county now has the airport, all of that be leased?
Yeah, because if you look in the south corner from that triangle, and I guess it'd be down and to the left, that embankment, that's actually the pistol shooting range. That's the backdrop for the bullets.
Clear down in here.
Yeah, clear down in that corner. So I think, honestly, we probably need to go out there, find the point of beginning, and re-establish what they're really using.
Like, just to the south of the triangle, like there's some up there, not shooting, like the concrete pads they have out there are not even in that triangle.
And it becomes quite obvious that none of that north area that is also the city property is used by the gun club, because that's where the rocks land, from the chuckers. So I think we really need to just go out there and reestablish what it's supposed to be. I would have sworn this was done. I was kind of surprised to see this thing. It just has been so long ago that we're going to find a new.
I don't have anything, and I didn't have anything from my day older than 2012. So I don't have.
It simply didn't get completed.
I don't have any other information than what was there.
It was known, identified, and the discussion to be corrected, obviously, was not. So. I would think we're probably. Let me look at it and work with Amanda a little bit on her system and see if we can't come up with the actual used area. Because none of the area is usable for anything else. as long as that gun club's there. Basically, there's a safety zone from the property to the north that's probably, you couldn't go any further south with any kind of housing or anything. So I would almost think we need to encompass the majority of that area between that red line to the south and the private property black line to the north, and then the east angled line, which is the fence to the airport, and the road driveway being the other boundary. It should all be covered. You couldn't have any other activity within this based on what they do. So,
I would think it would take a little bit better if we at least encompass that whole area in there. I think it would be
you could always, if say there was a different use or didn't come, you could always revise it at that point, but there's no reason to have what looks like available use property when there obviously is not in firearms.
So we need to get that clarified before we do this.
probably. Jared wants to go flag that whole time. Even if you look at the list.
Tell them to get all your stuff moved in.
Southeasterly, well, what, and then, northeasterly, and then southwesterly, and then triangle, the same direction that you went this way from this way, and I'm just like, I'm not saying that this triangle is bad, but I'm like, it doesn't make any sense.
And that's the thing. I mean, when we looked at the legal, because Holly and I both looked at it today, not being familiar with the gun club and not being familiar with the property, and it's a weird description, but if that's what they use, if that's what they use, then
Encompass all that they use, and that's what I'm just like. So the city's liability, I hate to just say, this is what you do,
Right.
and then something happens outside of this triangle.
They obviously have activities outside of their beach, and that's
Yeah.
Because in that triangle, I don't even know if that would encompass all the trap shooting.
I don't think so. I think
I-
the far west one is
It
missed.
doesn't even encompass.
I would think that the
bank.
Yeah, just down here where the rifle pistol range is, yeah.
I would think that the appropriate thing to do based on this is what JR said, with the red lines and the black property lines and then the white going through it. I think it's this tract of land less anything that's already designated. I mean, just to cover the city from a liability standpoint of, if anything goes on in this whole area, that's on you guys.
Do we have a deed?
That should be legally described city property. Even the airport was the city, so that property line should be done. We sold that to Mac.
So we have so it goes back to what the city originally had, which is,
Sure.
it was the west half of the southwest border. It was a large amount of
Sure.
but we've jumped this off, we've jumped this off, we've jumped this off. I think we have the measurements
But
all around it.
but then the legal could just be the west half of whatever quarter, less this tract, less this tract, less this. I mean, we can just accept out the tracts that have been deeded out and not have to come up with. Oh. Okay, never mind. I was trying to make it easy. Okay.
Since you've got all of that up where the state buildings at, Roger Jensen,
Okay.
Clay Nobleman,
I retract my previous statement.
Crimes, like the city deeded the crimes and then trying to take it back to the city.
Yes, I know.
It includes all of that, so I'm thinking it might be easier just to subtract out what we've done and we have the measurements that we can.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think, I don't know, JR can do it.
I'll lay it for
Somebody's
next meeting, with it, okay?
My steps are about.
Do April 1st.
Well, I mean, I just put that date on there. It expired on the first day of February in 2012. So, I mean, we've been, I mean, from a liability standpoint, I think we probably should get it done, but, I mean, we can change the first day, the 11th day, whatever date we want to do.
I don't think most of the time, but I think.
Right. I just put that in here because I was presenting it. I did not know that the legal was, I did not know there was that much of an issue with the legal, so I put that date since I was presenting it today. That would give them throughout the week to get it signed, and then it would go into effect on Friday. But, I mean, when we get the real legal, I will put that in, and then I will change it to the appropriate date.
You want to talk to, I think it was Adam Guthmiller? And let them know maybe what's going on with it.
Absolutely. Okay, do you have anything else?
I guess it is unlikely that I will be here on the 11th of April due to the current volume of tax returns still coming into my office. I will try to make it, but I may not be able to. If I'm not here, I will be available. I'll be available by phone in the event that I need it.
Okay, do you hear a motion to accept the attorney report? Moved by Dara. Second by Amanda, all in favor. Approved. Clerk report.
I have a chicken permit renewal here. Didn't get it on the agenda. I apologize for that. I think because I just got it today. This is for Margaret Lister. It's a renewal at 209 South Scott. North Scott, sorry.
Do I hear a motion to approve the chicken permit? Moved by Amanda, second by David, all in favor. Approved.
And then out on the share, and I apologize again, Mayor, I don't think I printed out the brochure for you. But we were talking in municipal court about the need to get some way to collect debt from outstanding fines and fees. There's a place, Collections Bureau of Kansas, and this guy has been, I've talked to him ever since I went to clerk conferences, and he's always calling and wanting to get us signed up for it, and a lot of people use it. It is a collection agency, and it would not be just for court. We could use it for our set-off, all of our debts, whatever we need to collect on. The way that they work is they charge a fee of whatever they collect. A percentage of what they collect goes to them, and then we get the rest. I think it's probably very much worth considering. I can have one of their representatives come and talk to you guys about their program and what they offer if you're interested.
Is there a fee to participate?
No, the only fee that they charge is based on what they collect.
Is there a percentage?
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's my understanding, yes. And many communities use these people. They've got a really, really good reputation.
We've been left with a lot of high-dollar electric bills.
We do have a lot of those. And,
Can we go back?
I believe that they can. Any outstanding debt, I'm pretty sure.
I mean, they're the ones going after it, and if they get them, they get them. I mean,
And the advantage is that they're not like with some of our things right now with court. We can only, in like set-off, we can only send it to the state. So if they're not in our state and they go somewhere else, we don't have a way to collect using set-off. These people aren't limited by the state boundaries. So we have some, go ahead.
Oh, and this would also, I mean, this would reduce costs in attempting to get it collected, because currently the only procedure we have is to try and cite them for contempt of court, because they haven't, I mean, not necessarily for electric bills, but for court costs. If they haven't paid, I have to go through and file a motion to find them in contempt of court. We have to have them served. We have to have them come into court. We have to have a hearing on the matter. And so, once again, we're 1 to 2 hours of time in to trying to get them to pay, whereas if we were to do something like this, the full amount would not be paid. I mean, it hopefully would be paid, but the full amount would not be remitted to the city. But the city wouldn't be paying upfront for something that may or may not ever be paid. It's you get results, they get paid.
Instead of something as bad as 0% nothing.
that's right. Everybody okay with getting more information on that? Okay.
I'll ask for a proposal. I may ask them to join us by phone and explain the program to you guys, if that's okay.
Did they mention what the percentage was?
I'm sure they did. It might be on there.
I didn't see
Um,
it.
I was looking for it, I couldn't see it.
Okay. I'm sure they did, but I didn't write it down, so,
Like you said, no matter if they charge you 30%, we get 70,
that's better.
70% we're doing that.
That's exactly right, so I will reach out to them. On the share, and I think I made you a copy of this, Scott, is the senior center report that Cinda Dankenbring brought in. She just wanted to make sure you guys got that. And the only other thing I have is Dan Blair, Fire Chief Blair, let me know that one of their volunteer firemen, Lance Owens, has stepped down from his position, and with the council's approval, they would like to bring on Jesse Layton. They believe he's a really good fit for the fire department. So he wanted me to make sure that was okay with the council. Oh, one more thing. I got it on a green sticky note here. Town hall meeting. I did get it on the LED sign, so Elmer was happy about that. But it's April 4th. Senator Bellinger, and they said it was Congressman Smith, but isn't he a representative? Okay, I've got to fix the sign. Anyway, they will be here at the library on April 4th from 12:30 to 1:30. It'd be really good if somebody from the city could attend. It's possible that they would bring that check that we were, the one that looks like this for our new CDBG grant. I think last year, or the last time, that's what happened, is they brought it out and they brought it to that town hall meeting, but we weren't represented there, so I don't know if anybody's able to go. It's Monday.
Oh, this coming Monday.
Monday, yeah.
I'm working and having family in town, so.
Sure.
I can't put it.
I'll write it down too. I think,
During lunch, so that's all I have.
Okay, do I hear a motion to accept and file the clerk report? Second by David, second by Larry, all in favor? 3. Okay, council comments, David.
Just real quick, every time we go out to Keller's Pond, we are more and more impressed by how nice it is. And we were talking to some other people the other day, and the suggestion came up to me, and I just wanted to bring it up, that it would be really awesome if that covered pavilion was big enough to seat like 100 people. Is that something we've ever talked about or discussed, or a large party out there?
The thing that we moved from the pool, what do we have under it? Did we just have, there's a couple picnic tables under it?
Yeah.
But you wouldn't be able to set 100 people underneath that.
I mean, a fair amount, but.
I don't think there's any.
It is super nice out there.
Yes.
There's 2 or 4 picnic tables under it, I think.
That's used to looking at it, what's under it.
There's a lot of things that have been discussed out of Keller Pond. It's a question of timing on some of the issues. It's a question of the funding.
Is there insurance on
What could I answer that?
I don't think any, she was asking about,
it? Insurance money?
I don't think any.
No. Okay.
Because we just literally just got the estimate from Brock and okayed the work to go forward on that thing.
Yeah, I just.
I don't know how we go where we get compensation. But that's a good question. Is there insurance on our behalf?
There is. The problem is with a $1,000 deductible, when you make a claim on something that's $5,000 or $6,000, you get a mark on your insurance and not so much benefit. The city's insurance is more geared towards a hail event or something, 100,000 or more. I mean, literally, you're a lot better off paying the small items directly.
I'll bring that up cautiously.
Okay.
There's a lot of things that have been discussed, long-term projects out there, lighting, bathrooms. I think when that was all developed, it was over $100,000 worth of grant funds that developed the trail and cleaned it up and everything out. There's ongoing things that.
I didn't notice the time before that new nice fencing that you got there in the front. Somebody ran over that.
That's what we're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a criminal case on that right now.
Okay.
Yeah, they're going to get a bid on it to get it fixed.
But that's, we already okayed that one to go forward. Yeah, I'm sure we did.
And is there anything that we can look into a grant for? For additional seating or additional space out there for the pavilion?
What kind of project you're doing and what it costs.
Okay.
Okay,
I can give it later to tell you a little more on that sometime.
someone was asking me if we're giving away millions from the streets. $4 a ton. $4 a ton? Okay, cool.
With limitations, I mean, we don't want it all going to one place.
Right.
And that's what I'd ask is to get, some of it's a little better than others, somewhere between 2 and 4, but I've actually found mostly to be pretty good, so I'm going to stick with $4 a ton.
Okay.
I'll just request item number 2, executive session for non-elected personnel for job performance. I was just wondering, I don't know if we've done it last year or so, but spring cleanup type thing.
Fall is the only one.
Oh, fall is the only one, okay.
And we did actually miss it last year because we didn't get advertised. We fully intend on getting that next year. Spring became too overbearing as far as doing the spring stuff. As less staff, we try to get parts and this sort of thing. Unless we change it.
Larry?
I know potholes have been discussed. I've had several people ask, what's the intent, what's the time frame? I know you're working on it.
As it gets warmer, what we have to do when it's cold is use minimal sewage is temporary. And then as it gets warmer, we'll be able to use tap oil, burn them in, and then that's the more permanent. And it takes much longer to do them.
Sure.
So we're doing some of that today.
Yeah.
With a packer.
With a packer. Same here, Judge. If you had 2 or 3 guys working on this, how long would it take?
2020.
There's a couple weeks.
Oh,
Clear it up or not?
No, because more come on when we get some rain and they get go from cracks to holes. Ongoing through the summer, it's just ongoing. We try to get the primary roads. There's no way I can put a time frame on it.
And that's fair.
And be honest.
The only other thing I had was the Rec Commission, and I know this has been discussed in the past. The Rec Commission asked about just putting up a volleyball net, just a net, no sand or nothing at the park behind the courthouse. Probably we'd have to go down and look at it again, either north, south, or east, west, so the kids can go down there and play volleyball. The Rec Commission would take care of the net and all that. I know it was discussed, but I don't know if we ever made a decision per se. Probably. Any objections to anything like that?
We talked about it before.
Yeah, I know we had.
I know there's a lot of,
We did have a rec commission. I mean, it was a no harm.
The Rec Commission initially wanted to put sand volleyball down there, but we overruled all that, because there's just not space. But we're just talking, they just want to put up a net so the kids can go down there and play. Any objections?
Well, I think the only thing I would say is just as long as it's, that the guys can mow without any problems. Other than that, I think it would be great.
Jim?
As long as there's not all kinds of anchors and stuff in it. I mean, we certainly have to minimize that.
I don't know how that works, but we'll find out. That's all I've got.
I just know there's a lot of kids that play football,
Right.
And I know we had talked about location of where it would be at, but I don't ever remember if it was decided.
When Kirby and I looked at it, he's on the commission too, we had talked just north of the bathroom in that area where you could play volleyball and still have a pretty good swath to play football. We didn't want to move that area. You'd go, that would be north-south.
Basically right behind the,
Yeah, it'd be west of the pavilion. And if I remember right, it kind of lines up, it's in between the merry-go-round and the bathroom, and it's just set, you're set far enough off there, so you're not going to run into the building or anything. But then you still have more than enough room on that north side to play football or whatever. If you have any questions about how small the zero is, you should.
okay. Like I said, the guys did start filming some holes today, and there's a lot of something to do with it. And you got to do on a nice warm day.
Here, on the buildings, did they get hold of you? Okay. We'll be hearing from someone soon. Okay. Public play. What's that? Public play. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, well.
I'm gonna call you later on.
Say again?
I'll call you later on about something else.
Okay, sounds good.
See you guys.
Good night.
Thanks, Randy.
Make a motion to go into executive session for 5 minutes, which is just the mayor and the council, to resume current discussion at 9:55 to discuss ongoing personnel, job performance.
That was really fast.
4 minutes.
9:57.
4 minutes.
What's the
9:55.
9:55, okay, who's second?
Who seconded it?
Okay.
No decision was made. And so, I guess now we need
Move
to
to adjourn.
move to adjourn. Amanda and Cale was already standing once, and he went, oh, I can't do it yet.
I was a little early on that one.